All right, hey, welcome everyone. Thanks so much for coming by. We're going to have a great time painting 5 compositions in watercolor. We're going to change all of our subject matter as we go. So first you'll see we're going to do a beautiful boathouse scene on the water on a maybe river or inlet, beautiful ocean inlet. Next we're going to do a gardenia, do some flowers. So we'll keep the subject matter diversified here in this video. Next we're going to move on to a gorgeous waterfall, beautiful waterfall scene. After that we'll do a quick figure painting in a seated position on the beach here, in a beach chair along the ocean. Just great, fantastic fun with doing some figure work, kind of more simple as far as our figure work here, nothing too detail orientated, just really nicely rendered here. And then finally we'll do just a beautiful winter scene, snow, beautiful sunset, sunrise type of sky. We'll use the glazing method here. We're going to show you how you use your glazing method here. The rest of these paintings here are going to be alla prima, which means we're just going to go in, paint everything starting and then right to the finish. This glazing technique here we're going to do on our last painting is more or less covering the whole paper with a light wash first of our sunset colors in the sky and some blue. But we're going to have a fun time doing all of these compositions. Join along with me. We're going to cover all the details that you need to create each one of these paintings. And we're going to have fun doing it and enjoy it. And let's get started. All right, so we saw the finished paintings, of course. And we're just going to start going one by one here. We're going to work for the next few hours or so and put together some really good compositions, some beautiful watercolor compositions. And we're going to start off with our first drawing and painting. It's going to be a boathouse and maybe a little bridge next to it and some water and some trees and some sky. So the first thing we'll do is we'll just take I have some Fabriano extra white Artistico paper cut into about a 5x7 here, and I have that taped down to my table. And then I have another piece of printer paper, about the same thing, 5x6, 5x7, and I'll tape that down to the table. And what we'll do is we'll do the sketch first. We'll work out our drawing first just quickly, and then once we're done with that we can start with the painting. So the first thing, I'm going to just make a basic note. We're working within the rectangles, so we just want to kind of have our rectangles set up like this. And then we're going to say, well, we're going to make the lake or river. This could be a river or lake. We're going to set that up about 1/3 of the way here. So I'm going to make a light sketch mark across the paper here, 1/3 of the way up. So this is, again, I often mention, it's like kind of like if you're used to cooking, you use like 1/3 a cup of sugar, 2/3 cup of milk, another half cup of flour, something like that. You're making a pastry or some kind of sauce or something like that for a meal. So we go 1/3 up, 1/3 here, and then we make our horizon line for our water and our boathouse, and then the 2/3 will be left for the trees and the sky. And that's pretty much the basic, just taking the rectangle and breaking it down into thirds, and then using the first third for the main information, and then the top 2/3 for the sky and clouds and some of our trees and mountains. So we have that done. We make our mark across. You can make it lighter. I made it a little bit darker so you can see it. And then I do a preliminary sketch usually, which is just I'm kind of going with the flow here. I'm just trying to maybe make a sort of a boathouse looking structure here, and we're seeing three-dimensional bit of this boathouse. And then we have the boathouse itself here. And next to that boathouse, maybe we'll just have a small footbridge that goes across, or it could even be a dock maybe going into the water. So we'll just make that like so. This will be dark, so we could shade that in like this. Darker up top underneath here. And then more light gets into this usually at the lower section of this doorway here. So this is where they would pull in their boats. People that are boating and they have a boathouse, they bring their boats inside the boathouse and tie them up and cinch them off to some pilings and what have you. And then they're ready for the next day when they go out. And we have a bridge over here, so we'll just make some wood planking for some bridges over here. Bridge or a dock, it could be a dock. And then we'll have some darks here, a couple of vertical lines. So you can kind of see I'm just making some indications of things. The boathouse here, a little bit of a dock going out into the water. And then maybe that's going to be the water here. And then maybe there's a distant hill over here. And then we're going to do some bits of shrubs and trees here, and more of in the foreground here, where the boathouse is. And then maybe in the back here we have a little more. We have some trees and a little bit of mountains here. And then maybe another tree over here. So we're just trying to get some of those tree shapes in there. And then maybe some limbs here. And trunks of trees, same over here. So these are just some indications of some vertical lines for trunks of trees, branches, a couple of branches over here, and then there's some more distant mountains over here, like that. That might be a distant mountain kind of trailing down. And this is our water. And we're going to pretend that sometimes I'll use a kneaded eraser, and I'll just clean up a little bit of the lines. So I work out some ideas and I think, well, maybe we'll have this be like the mysterious distant water where we feel like we can go into the picture and sail across the water and then go out into like maybe the deeper oceans or further down the river, whatever it is. So if you kind of have that idea of mystery in your compositions and in your paintings, that's going to be fun to keep that in mind. And some more ground over here. So this might be a little bit of some land jutting out into the water over here. And we have some reflections of our boathouse here. Just want to make sure we kind of reflect this down into the water. Very calm water here. This is going to be like a slow-moving river. And, or, you know, it could be a small inlet from the ocean. And that when we have that kind of working, some reflections here, the grass and weeds up here. I think we have a good bit of information that we can, some more information here, some reflections of the dock over here. Those are going to be darks. And I think we have a really good looking composition. And this is what we're going to use for our sketch now on our watercolor paper. So I'm going to set this up across from me. Up above here. Actually, I'm going to tape it up to the wall here across from my table. And so what I'll do is I'll just take one quick break for about 5 minutes just to recharge the concentration levels here. And once I do that, I'll be ready. I'll come back and we'll start sketching on our watercolor paper. And I probably won't draw a rectangle on this one, but I will tape this. So I think I think this is good if you're going to do some paint, some compositions. I would tape off the compositions like this with some tape. And this way when you peel off that tape, you'll have a nice, crisp, clean, white, almost like a mat around your painting. And it'll automatically make it look so much better. And this is just some artist tape. This is drafting tape, actually. It's kind of like a medium tack. So its tackiness is about medium. It's not too much. It definitely won't tear any watercolor paper apart. It doesn't have that much tack to it. You ever use that tape? You know, that kind of tape where you put it down and when you lift it up, it tears all your watercolor paper up. I've had that numerous times. I thought I went to the store and bought the right tape, and next thing you know, it was ripping up my papers. So it's always good if you stick with drafting tape. Drafting tape is normally, the word drafting tape is basically a low tack or a medium tack tape that won't tear paper, because it's meant to be lifted off and put back down many times on a sheet of paper. Or also you can use what they call it painter's tape, but a lot of times you'll see it in the store, and you can just it's called like painter's tape, frog tape, trim tape, things like that. Usually the colored tape. So sometimes you can get the green tape. This is actually frog tape. Green tape works really good. It's about a medium tack too. Won't tear up your paper. I have also some Pro Artist tape. This might have a little bit more tack to it, but this also works. This is pretty good. I'm just looking around my studio here. The blue frog tape is about the same thing too. It's like the green, kind of like a medium tack, not too much. This is good tape too. So both of the frog tape with green, blue, and there's also a purple. That frog tape makes a purple, like a very, very light purple, kind of lavender looking tape. That works too. That works great. So any of the frog tapes are pretty good, green, blue, or purple. Or again, you can buy the drafting tape online on Amazon. Amazon has all the tapes that I'm mentioning here, so you can always it's an easy place to order things from. I order mostly all my art materials, and I also have a bunch of links in the description box below with all my art supplies and things like that, as we're just getting started here, just to mention those things for you. Okay, so I'll be right back. We'll just take a quick break for 5 minutes, stretch a little bit, and then we'll come back and we'll start the drawing. Alright, we're going to get started again. We'll get our pencil drawing done. Now, I'm using, incidentally, this is a Staedtler 8B pencil. And these are great pencils. I buy them, like, I think there's like a 10 in a box. And they last a long time. But these are really fantastic. And these put on a really good dark line. So if you like to shade, like how we did our first sketch here, I'm just going to lift this up quick over here. If you like to, shade things like this, these the Staedtler 8Bs are great. You can do some really good dark shading with your pencil like this, and it really, without much effort, you can get some really beautiful dark shading going in your sketches and drawings. All right, so we'll start again with the 1/3 rule. We're going with 1/3 between the top and bottom, about one. It doesn't have to be exact, about 1/3. That's about here. 2/3, 1/3, 2/3, and 3/3. And then we just make that light line again across. Just an approximate line. You can use a ruler if you want. Sometimes rulers are really fine to use. You can use those and keep your lines really straight. You can measure a little bit. I think I have a smaller ruler here. So this one here would be like, this is a half ruler. These are great to have too. And I'll just measure. If you want to get a real exact, you could just say, oh, that's an inch and about an inch and a half there, inch and a half. You make a mark, inch and a half, then you come over here and do the same thing from this bottom of the tape up, inch and a half. Make a mark there. And then you can drop your pencil down on both of those hash marks, like that, and draw a line across, and then you're exactly dead level across your painting. So once we have that, we can draw our boathouse. You could use a ruler to draw your boathouse too. There's no reason why you can't do that. We could make it 2 vertical lines like this. Like that, 2 vertical lines, and then another vertical line over here, a little bit lower. I'm going to start that line a little lower because it's going to the angle is going to be like this, sort of like on a 45-degree angle like this. So, like that, like that. So we're seeing a little bit of the side of it, just a tiny bit. Then we could draw a line across here, very faint line, just so we know it's there. So we kind of have our cube now. Can you kind of see it looks like a cube of sugar? Or that could look like a tissue box or something. You could see it as like a shape of like a tissue box, a cube. That could be a moving box, something like that. Then what we'll do is we'll just make a rough center line on that. You could measure it too and say, well, how much wide is this? And we could say, oh, it's 7/8 of an inch. So we could say roughly half an inch is halfway, approximately. And we could take that half-inch dot and go up a little bit and make our peak, our ridge of our roof like that. And then we could take our line and just make a perfect triangle like that down to the corners of the roof, or down to the corners of the eaves of the roof like that. And there we have it. You have a perfect shed or boathouse. And then you can make another parallel line here like this, and then just put a little bit of like a ridge on that, and a little bit of the roof. So we're making a little bit of a three-dimensional, drawing of this boathouse here. But you could just leave that out. You could leave this side, if you don't want to bother with the side of the boathouse, you could just make it the one square, and then the triangle on top of the square, and that's fine enough. That's going to look good. Once you paint it, you're going to be happy with it. And then once we do that, maybe we can just draw the actual opening by hand, like that. Now, boathouse is good. Looks great. Now we're just gonna, looks good. And we go like this, and we just do a little bit of the bushes and trees over here, trailing down a little bit. And then up here, we're gonna do another bit of trees over here, like so. And then we said we might see a little bit of the distant mountains over here. And then we have another tree up here. And again, I'm trying to stick close to what I sketched when we first were working on that first sketch. And then we maybe have that mountain trailing down like that. And then we had another hill or outcropping here coming down like that. And it's loose too. We can, when we're painting this, we can go over the lines and change things around a little bit. You can always do that. I often do that. And then, okay, we'll put the little bit of the reflections of what we've drawn here. We're going to do some reflections in the water like that. What else? We wanted to do that bridge, or the I should say the dock over here going out with some dark lines. Maybe two dark lines, like two dark pencil lines should be all we have to really worry about. And then some verticals like that. And then maybe the reflection of the dark in the water there of the dock coming out over here. That's fine. And again, we'll make this more loose when we paint it, but we're just going to draw it a little more accurately as we're doing it now. But I think that's fine. We have some weeds and grasses and things like this coming over here. And I think that's fine. We're going to do a more free-flowing, really nice sky, not worrying too much about accuracy with our skies. We'll make it a nice wet wash sky with some water on there, and you'll see how we're going to do that next. All right, so yeah, we're good. We're going to have another quick, again, I'll take a 2-minute break. I like to just stretch my legs a little bit, take a quick breather, and then we'll get started on the painting. All right, so we're going to spritz our paints a little bit here. I just resupplied my paints a little bit before we started in this session here. Now, I'll probably start off with this is a number 8 travel brush. These are the Da Vinci Maestros. Travel brushes. For this might be a little bit large actually. Let's use something a little bit smaller I'll go with the number 5 travel brush, the Da Vinci 5. That's better. It fits a little bit better, like with this. This is good for the sky maybe, but you can kind of see it's way larger than the structure. So I guess what I think is a good rule of just when you're planning what brush to use, it should kind of fit the drawing, the details of the drawing of what you're painting. So like obviously we wouldn't go in and start painting this with this size brush. Be hard to get the details in. But we get, here's a little bit large, maybe too, good for the sky and good for the water and the trees. But for the first, we're going to start out doing the boathouse. This is better. So this is a number 5 travel brush. So let's get started. We're going to just go in and get our darks. So we kind of saw from our first sketch that, the dark was actually, the first dark we saw was really the interior of the boathouse. So we start out there and just get a good dark up top here going. Like that. And then for the boathouse, we're going to go with maybe a raw umber, like this. Maybe a little bit of cerulean blue, raw umber. I'm going to go across like that. It's kind of a nice olivey green. That looks pretty good. And then what I'm thinking is we can always make a little notation at the top of our painting of where the light's coming from. And we're going to say that the light's coming from this side over here. So the sunlight is coming this way. And it might be like early morning. And so I like to always have some tissue in my hand here so I can rinse off my brush. I have just a small container, water container like this. Fresh, clean water right to my right-hand side. You can always leave a sponge next to your water container and take some water off your brush on top of the sponge if you want. I tend to use like a tissue or paper towel. I just take the brush, rinse it off, then I dry off a little bit of the water, and then I come back over here and start to work the colors in my palette. So I'm going to go with a little bit of a lighter blue here for this part there, and then up for the roof, maybe some more golden color, maybe a golden yellow ochre or raw sienna. Mix that in like so. You can mix around your colors. Alright, looks pretty good. And then we're going to just start right away mixing some sap green right over here. And I'll put some into the building, and then I'll start putting some in here for the trees. You can do a little scrubbing with the trees like this. And they'll be a little bit lighter up top, the trees, and then they get a little darker as they move closer to the ground where there's more shade, maybe a little more blue. So you can make them a little bit darker down here, your trees, like that. Then you can rinse off your brush, dry off a little bit of water, and usually you can take a little bit of a break when you're working along the edges of your painting. And what I mean by that is, don't worry, you don't have to do a lot of detail along the edges of your painting. You can kind of soften the work that you're going to be doing along the edges of your painting. You're sort of looking to kind of keep more of the interest in the central locations of your painting, and then when you're getting toward the outer edges of your painting, you can be a little bit less, you know, detail orientated around those areas. And then also too with the colors, you can dim down the colors a little bit if you want, or I should say make them less intense. And then that works. And there's some olive green here. I'll do a little splashing, maybe a little bit of Viridian. So you can make some watery washes like this. Have fun with the washes, maybe a little more cerulean blue down here. So I'm thinking let's keep the color scheme in this painting pretty, let's not use too many colors. Let's kind of just keep it with what we have here. The sap green, cerulean blue, French ultramarine blue and brown, and some raw sienna, raw umber. Kind of like the golds and the greens, and some blue. And then as we work here, we can get some of those darks across here. That's the shadow actually of the bridge, or the docks here. And then here I'd like to go with some darker colors and tonal values here. That's going to be the reflection of the door a little bit. And you can always change your game plan a little bit. You don't always have to stick exactly to what you had when you first started, like your drawing. You can, sometimes you can change course and add some different colors. Or and what I like to do here is kind of get this started here with our painting, right? And then kind of let that set up and dry now. I don't want to keep working in the water. I think I'm going to leave the water here till later after this all dries. So I'm just going to now work over this way a little bit. And then I'll make these trees over here a little bit lighter. So a little bit of sap green and a little bit more blue. Make this a little more toward the blue. So we're going to pretend that these are a little bit further away in the distance here, these trees. And I'll blend those right into the shed. Like that. I can even splash a little bit. A little bit of finger painting and finger dabbing to get some interesting colors and textures. You can put a little bit of darks in there, some mystery darks. And then again, I'm going to go with even more blue over here. And I'll take that blue and just go like this and also reflect it here a little bit. And then I'll try to maybe put a little bit of that raw umber and dark. Maybe see if I could just get a little bit of that in there. Like that. French ultramarine blue, burnt umber. A little bit of that, dabbing that in a little bit for the reflection. Couple of splashes, and then more blue over here. And that's going to be about it for right now. We're going to let this dry for about, depends, 5 to 10 minutes with a blow dryer. You can get this all dry and come back and start working, or if you want to let it dry, maybe like an hour or two. You know, that all it all depends too on your what kind of how warm your studio is or your place when you're working. You know, if you have a cool place that you work in your house, where it's a cooler room, it'll dry slower. If you have a warmer room and you're working in a warm atmosphere, then it's definitely going to dry faster, so you might not have to wait a couple hours. It might be drying like an hour, but I would let it dry really well, and then we'll finish up with our sky and our water reflections. I hope you're enjoying it so far, and we'll be right back to finish up. We're just going to, again, let it dry. I'll use my blow dryer to get this all dry, and then I'll come back in like 5-10 minutes. Alright, so I used the blow dryer and it looks really good. Feels dry. Everything's 100% dry. Now we can go back in, and the first thing I'll do is I will bump up to that number 8 travel brush, but before I do that, let me just dampen this brush here, clean some water here, fresh clean water, dry off the brush just a little bit, and what I'll do is I'll just dampen the edge around the trees and the mountains here, so that when we do our sky wash it won't bleed down into the mountains too much and flow into those areas that we've already painted. We don't want to disturb that too much if we don't have to. Sometimes you might want that look. You might want to have it flow down in there, but I think we're going to leave this edge here along the trees and mountains and around the top of this boathouse. So we want to dampen the edge here so that that sky wash that we're going to do right now is not going to flow down in there too much. Like that. So we do that first, then we go in and we get our larger number 8 travel brush. We'll take some fresh clean water. Before I do that, let me do one more thing. Let me take a paper towel, rinse off a paper towel with a little fresh clean water, and I'll just clean up the palette a little bit. We sort of have a, I don't know, we remember what colors we used in this composition, in this painting. And like I say, I mention this often, just a thought. I tend to use the same colors over and over again. I've used the same colors in my palette for like 10 or more years now. And the reason I do that is if I just stick with these same colors, I memorize them all. And also too, my eyes get adjusted to them, so that I kind of like really, I'm able to like sort of, if I'm in the middle of the painting, I can just look at my painting here and know what colors I'm using here and can see them clearly because I'm using them all the time and I kind of have them memorized. So that, if you stick with the same colors all the time, and you can always add more to your palette. Like if you do a painting and you say, oh, I want to add, let's say a peacock blue, or I want to add a Prussian blue, or I want to add like a, you know, something a little different like quinacridone gold, quinacridone rose, different colors like that. You can always put additional paint on your palettes and, you know, add them to your paintings and work with them. But if you have a standard palette that you use all the time, it really does help a lot. It really just helps your, you know, it helps with your just whole painting process, really. But I do that, but you don't necessarily have to do that. You know, you might like to work with like 30 or 40 colors, and that's fine too. You know, it's just my own personal, you know, kind of way I work, but that's just a thing I usually mention once in a while. And I have lists of my colors that I use. I have videos. If you just type in my palette, Chris Petri, my palette, you'll probably see 10 videos where I cover all my colors, all my different palettes that I use time to time. So you'll see all that information if you ever want to check that out. So again, we dampen the paper a little bit. I might do it one more time here, just a little bit. One more time, I'll just dampen the paper a little bit there. And then I'll take water, fresh clean water, and just put some on the paper up here on the top of the paper. And then maybe a little bit more of a damp brush here. Like that, and that is it. And maybe a little bit too here in the bottom of the sky. I mean the bottom of the water. I'll put a little bit of the fresh clean water. And this way we'll have a really beautiful, really nicely diffused, beautiful watercolor looking washes. So let's go with the same colors we've been using. A little bit of raw umber, maybe to just add a little bit of nice warmth to some of the blue, like that. And then we just put that right into the sky. Here and there. We leave some spaces for clouds. Then you can rinse off the brush, dry off a little bit of the water on a paper towel tissue. Pick up some more of that raw sienna, and then get a little bit of that and just maybe a little bit of raw umber here. And that will just be to really balance out the colors on the whole painting, kind of harmonize all the colors together. And then more raw sienna here toward this bottom section here. So that's where I'll use some of that raw sienna along the bottom of the sky, like that. And then I'll flow that right down in here. And there you have it. Beautiful watery washes for the sky and the water. You can take a clean tissue and do a little bit of blotting if you want to blot out some color or some clouds. You could twist like that and you can get a few clouds like this with a clean tissue. You got to fold it back over though and get the tissue nice and clean again. So if you blot once with your tissue, you kind of have to change it and move it around so that you don't have more paint going in there. And you do a couple more of those and you have a few clouds like that. You can blot up a little bit of paint if it's puddling up at the bottom. And that's it. I'll blot a little bit over here. And then once this starts to dry a little bit, again, we're going to let this dry a little bit. We'll do some finishing touches. We'll do a couple details here and there. Maybe we're going to put in like maybe a little bit of twigs or maybe a post or something in here. We'll kind of just add a few maybe interesting elements like few vertical lines with a little bit of reflections in the water to give it more of that watery look. But I think we have a nice looking painting right now. Nice composition. Hope you're having fun. We're going to keep going here. We got plenty more work to do. We're just getting started actually. So let's take another quick break for 5 or 10 minutes, let this dry a little bit, and then we'll get some more of these finer details for the last couple minutes of the painting. Alright, so now we just want to do a few last details here. I'll use my needlepoint brush and we'll get some French ultramarine blue here, straight paint, burnt umber, straight paint, no water, maybe a little touch of burnt sienna. Just like this, I load up my brush. Then I just dry off a little bit of the paint don't want too much on there, especially over here. We're going to do a little bit of a distant. We'll do a small post over here like that, and then maybe a little bit of that, kind of those nice and loose reflection lines like that. For this over here, there might be a little marker there. And then maybe over here, we'll do the same thing. We'll do this one a little thicker. Thicker paint, burnt sienna, burnt umber, French ultramarine blue, the darkest darks we can make. Like that. Burnt umber. Now this vertical we're going to put over here is thicker, so we can leave the extra paint on the brush. We don't need to really take any paint off the brush. And we'll do that. We'll make a nice thick line like this. And then we're just going to do a little bit like that. A little bit of a squiggly line. And we'll put a little triangle at the top. Okay. And that is pretty good. And I'll rinse off my brush. Now maybe I'll take a little bit of that raw umber here. Add a little bit of the dark to it, just to darken it up a touch. Kind of make it a grayish color. Dry off the brush. So there's only a little bit of paint on the brush. Maybe I'll do a few seagulls here. And then I tend to think that the seagulls look good if we just make them really quick. Like that. So I put a few over here. Maybe one over here. Okay, so we have a lot of fun, interesting information in this small composition. And you can turn this into a larger painting if you want. You just have to upsize everything. Larger drawing, larger paper, more paint, larger brushes, and that's it. You have it. We'll peel off the tape, and you'll see how it really does look fantastic once we lift off the tape. Gives you that nice crisp border around. All right, so we're going to continue on. We're going to have a fun journey here on this video. We're going to continue creating more compositions where we're kind of doing a little bit of a quicker pace. We're not really taking too much time. Maybe we're spending 20 minutes, half an hour on each of these compositions. And that's really what if you can do that, it'll really be fun, because then you can just move on to the next one. So if you did work on this one a little bit and maybe it wasn't your favorite, it's not your cup of tea, maybe with a boathouse and some of the things we're doing here, great. You warm up on this one, you work on it a little bit, wham, we go to the next one, and we'll work on the next one for half an hour, 45 minutes. Maybe it's going to be something you're going to enjoy a little more the next painting. So hopefully you'll be excited as we get started on our next composition coming up in just a second. All right, so we're starting with our next composition. Let's do a gardenia. We'll have a fun time just doing a really loose interpretation of our gardenia. Let's I'll make a rectangle here just so we can kind of see the border of our composition like that. And I think I'm just going to do something a little bit I'm just going to think to myself, let's keep the gardenia a little bit lower in the picture frame versus floating up in the top section of it. So I'm going to keep it lower to the bottom. Does that make sense? Keeping the gardenia flower closer to the bottom of this composition. So let's take the idea of just having the round shape of the gardenia like this. Then we're just going to go with a couple of the leaf forms like this. And I'm just going to contour draw this. Basically getting ourselves maybe a little more like familiar with the subject here. We're just going to Okay, like that. And if we want to go up here a little more, we can kind of do that. So we look at it and we kind of say, okay, this looks good. We have a center of the flower there. There's going to be a little bit of shadowing in the flower here, maybe. And this is going to be dark. So we just shade this in. These are going to be the dark green leaf forms here. And this will be the white flower in the center. So we'll use this. I'll just take this and simply set it up across from me. And I'll redraw it. I just wanted you to see that. I can even put it here. You could even hit pause and draw from this if you wanted to practice and do a quick go of this. And then if you hit pause, you'll be coming back again, and now we'll do it a second time on our watercolor paper. And I'll just again reference that drawing we just did. So you want to keep the gardenia lower over here toward the bottom of this. We can make a border around here like so. That. Then again, I'm going to take that idea of keeping the gardenia a little bit lower here, and then I'll start again. We'll do the leaf forms. Like this. And that should be good. All right, we're going to have some fun doing this. So next thing we're going to do is we'll clean up our palette again. I'll take some of the water, dampen up my paper towel, and I'll just go right around the palette with a wet paper towel. Then I'll go in with a damp paper towel or even a dry one next here and just lift up all the rest of the paint. It doesn't have to be perfect, just as long as we get the majority of the paint off. We're starting a new painting, so we want to make sure we start with our new colors, and we don't want to mix too many different colors together. We want to keep our paints looking fresh and clean. So for our gardenia colors, we're going to go with raw sienna. I'll start with some raw sienna up here on this left side of my palette, just so we can kind of get the colors out here on the palette. Raw sienna, maybe a little bit of cadmium orange, touch of cadmium orange in that. I rinse my brush off. Maybe I dry off a little bit of the water on a paper towel or sponge or paper tissue. And then we're going to start getting into our darker colors. That's going to be the French ultramarine blue up here, sap green here. So we have our sap green and a little bit of burnt umber mixed in there too. That'll be our darkest dark. We have our lighter lights here with our golden colors. And we're going to have also a little bit of rose madder here, like that. So I think those are really the main colors we're going to use. Again, the golden colors, a little bit touch of cadmium orange and raw sienna, a little bit of rose madder here for like a beautiful light red, very, very light red, pinkish color. And then over here we have our darker darks, which is the burnt umber, French ultramarine blue, and we used sap green too, like that. Okay, so now we'll go in and start to work on our, and this number 8 travel brush is going to work pretty well because you can see that the brush works for the sizes of the details or the main subject matter that we're using or creating. So this, you can see the hairs of the brush kind of fit into the areas that we're painting. So again, we wouldn't want to use like this brush like this to paint this so much, because you can see how it's quite small. We'd want to upsize our brush to fit the subject matter like that. So that's why I'm going to use this, and it makes it go a little quicker, which means you're going to have less brush strokes and you'll be able to get things moving quickly and or at a good pace. So I'm going to make those darks here, and then I rinse off my brush, dry off the water. So now I just have a damp brush, and I just try to take this and work it up this way here. Maybe a little bit of more sap green over here. And then a little bit of gold. And then a little bit of splashing, a couple of splashes. Loosen up a little bit as we go. Okay, now we'll move over to here. Sap green. A little bit of raw sienna, maybe. And a couple more details here, like so. Maybe a little bit more of that golden color up here. Okay. Mix up a little more darks, burnt umber, French ultramarine blue, sap green. And we'll just start getting in this darker bit there. Rinse off my brush. Sap green, maybe a little more raw sienna. And you can see I'm just working my way around. I'm starting off with darker tonal values toward the center of the flower here, and then it gets lighter as it goes outwards. This here is a little bit darker, and then we'll do the same thing, a little more French ultramarine blue, burnt umber, sap green, keeping it nice and dark here. and we're having so much fun with the colors that we almost forget we're painting a flower. We're just having so much fun looking at the colors, and we'll start to even infuse in some of our rose madder in here too. And I would just usually mention this, let's add that rose madder everywhere. So if you want to start to add in some of that rose madder here and there, just try to add it in everywhere. Sometimes it's going to be a little difficult to add it in over here in these other locations that we were working with before, because it's almost like it's already too late to go in and start adding more washes or paint into those areas. But I did it. I just went for it. I went for the gusto, and it worked out okay because I still have a little bit of time to work in those areas, but very little. So if you can imagine, if you're going to, maybe if you decide later as you're painting, oh, I want to add another color, just wait till the painting dries like 100%, like an hour later, or if you use a blow dryer, then you can go back in and add some of this rose madder as I was doing, because it is a little bit risky to go in and start adding something in once you already have painted in areas, and then you try to go back in. That's one thing with watercolor. Does that make sense? Many of you probably, right? You probably know this. Like you kind of have that, probably already that reaction not to go back in and paint in areas that you're kind of completed with already as you're working through your painting process. So I know many of you probably already have that natural reflex not to do it. So I'm really happy about that, because I mention it's, on a regular basis. I think I do mention that it's really, once you start painting in an area and then you're moving on to a different section, it's hard to go back in again and put more paint in, because it tends to make blotches and cauliflower looking things and awkward splotches of colors and watermarks and things. But this time it worked out okay. I was able to kind of mix it in there all right, and it looks all right. And then now we'll do the same thing with, let's see, let me just do this here. Let me kind of get this edge a little bit straight there. Okay, good. Now we'll take some of the beautiful lighter tones. So now we're going to rinse off our brush. Probably a good time to empty our water. So I'm going to empty my water, put fresh clean water in the water bucket now, because we're going into the light areas where we're doing very light washes. So we don't want to have muddy water when we're doing this center of the flower now. So I'm going to do this here, make some shadow over here. There's some gold in that shadow. So this is more the shadow area of the gardenia flower here. Like this. A little bit of the gold, like that. And then there's a bit of more and then I blot a little bit with my tissue, like that. Maybe I had a little more. Like that. Maybe another few splashes here. And there we have a fun flower composition, a gardenia. You could take a little more darks, burnt umber, French ultramarine blue, burnt sienna, sap green. And you can maybe just make a few more darks over here maybe. Just to maybe feel like it's secured down to the bottom of the painting a little bit. But these would be kind of darker darks down here. And even a couple of splashes in the center of the flower. Like that. All right, let's call this complete. I hope you enjoyed this now. Our second composition. We're going to keep moving along here. We're going to keep working for the next hour or so. So hope you're having fun, and we are going to try to mix up our variety here of what we're working on so that you won't feel like you're just doing one style of subject matter. We're going to try to mix up our subject matter here. So we're going to come up with something a little different now as we move into the next composition. And we'll be back in just a minute. All right, so now next we're going to do our waterfall. Yes, I know many of you are going to really enjoy this. And it's not something that we do, right, as watercolor artists. We don't, waterfalls are not really like the typical things you see all the time in books and on YouTube and so forth. But we're going to do it anyway and have a fun time, and it's going to be a challenge for us, of course, because if we don't draw and paint something on a regular basis, it's going to be a little bit challenging, and that's good. I would say as a watercolor artist, just my own opinion, if you can branch out and do as much different information and subject matter as you can when you have the opportunity to, you're better off. But I'm not saying you shouldn't work mostly with what your favorite subject matter is. So I think as watercolor artists, we should stick with what our favorite subject matter is and do that most of the time. However, if you do branch out and do some different things, when those opportunities do come up and you just feel like, yeah, let me try something a little different, it'll be great. You'll have fun with it. It'll just challenge your skills and your watercolor acumen. So I'm going to go with the third rule here. So I made my rectangle. And I say about a third of the way up, that's going to be where the water is pooling down here, where you have that nice little pool below the waterfalls. And then I'm going to kind of take that and then work up from there and start to get my bubbling water here. There's a rock here that's like this, so I'll make that. And then there's another rock here. So we have some good solid rocks at the bottom of the painting. And there's another really good solid rock over here. It's about the same height. And it goes about like this. Like that. And then there's some, I'm just going to make some ideas of branches and a stem and a little bit of a small tree here and some weeds and things like that and grasses and things, okay, on the left here. And then as I go up here, I notice about here there's another rock ledge where there's another bit of water coming down here. And then as I go up here, I look around and I just see there's a rock here. There's a ledge, a rock ledge up here. And there's some darker rocks up here. So this looks a little bit abstract, but we're just getting I'm working my way up the waterfalls here. Then over here, I'd say about 2/3 of the way up. So we have 1/3 of the way up is like the pool, the area where all the water is just pooling down here, and you have a little bit of a ponding of water. Then from there, the second third and the top third is going to be more or less the waterfalls. So as I'm getting up to the 2/3 mark, I have another waterfall coming this way. So I'm making the lines, if you can see those. I'm making the lines this way, water flowing this way, water flowing this way, like that. And then one more up at the top. So we have these up here, another rock here, and then more waterfalls flowing this way up here. Down. And then there's a bit of like a bit of a wall of rock here. So that's rocks here and moss. But the main thing I wanted to show you was that when we're doing this painting, that's the top, and then there's some more rocks up here. And there's like a bit of rock and distant rocks up there. And then there's some water up top here. And then there's some more greens and weeds and things like that up here. And there's some weeds over here. And we're going to make this more free-flowing. I'm sketching my ideas out. It's going to be much more free-flowing and fun when we paint it. But I am trying to just get this basic ideas of where the water's flowing. And what I'll do is I'll just use a, let me see if I can find something here that's going to work really well. Yeah, this should work. I'm over here on the other, over on the side over here of my studio on my table, and I'm looking for something that might work. Let's see, what do we got? Okay, I'm going to use this large permanent marker just to kind of give you the idea of where the flows of the water is. So I'm just going to take this and go like this. And then over here the water's kind of flowing this way. Like that. And then up here the water's flowing this way. So it's flowing here, landing in like a ponding area. It ponds up, it flows over, hits a ponding area, flows down here, hits another ponding area here, and then flows down here, and then this is another pond here, a little, you know, over at the base here of the painting. So, and then up top here the water is more like a river up here, where the source of the water is right now coming from, the waterfall. Okay, and then what else do we really have? You can kind of look at the darks here. Let's do the darks with the magic marker just so we can make it a little bit easier for ourselves here. So we're just going to have the darks over here and over here. There's some dark there. And then over here, this looks a little bit dark here. So there's a rock that's kind of like this, a little bit darker there. A little bit darker over here. So you can have some darks. These are going to be your darkest darks. Like this. Dark, dark up here. Some darks up here like that. Alright, so that's your dark patterns. And this here is your water flow. So the water flow, we could actually just, maybe we could take some black magic marker. Or let's take the darks and make them black. Like this. So this is the dark darks. That'll be your darkest darks in your painting when you're working up this composition now of your waterfall. The black magic marker is going to be the darkest dark areas. Like that. There might be some more darks up here too. Kind of like that. And then your blue, that's going to be your water flow. So that's the way your water's going to be flowing, your waterfall. But you're going to leave that white paper. So just remember, you're leaving the blue water flow you're going to leave that all white paper, and you'll add a little bit of shadowing to it. And you watch as we go. We're going to explain everything as we go. I will not leave you without giving you good instruction on this one, because this one's a little different, right? You know, waterfalls, we don't do these all the time, but I just wanted to kind of give you like the darks here. These are going to be like the darker rocks and shadows. And then some of the water. Some of the water is dark up here. And then there's some dark areas up here too, which might be water and actually rock. And then here, again, the blue magic marker. That's the flow of the water, which is going to be white. We're going to leave the water pretty much white, the waterfalls itself, because that's bubbling water and it's kind of really light. It's catching a lot of the sunlight too. All right, so this is going to be pretty much the pattern of how we're going to do the next sketch, and then obviously we're going to paint after that. So I'll be right back. I'll take a quick break, and then we'll get into the sketch on the watercolor paper next. I even have some Sharpie marker, permanent marker, going through the paper and landing on this. That doesn't hurt anything. That's actually just I'll just use this for my darkest paints anyway, so because that's what we're wanting to do. So this might be another method of actually getting some markings on your watercolor paper with some of your darkest darks. If you put dark magic marker, now we just learned that, if you put dark permanent marker on a thin piece of printer paper, it's going to bleed through and mark up your watercolor paper, and that's not a bad thing. It's actually going to be our advantage right now, because we're going to use it to just recreate our drawing and then our eventual painting. So, all right, we have something that we ventured out, tried something new, and we think maybe it ruined our watercolor paper, but no, we actually realized, wow, this can be help us, because now we already have our dark darks, our dark rock shapes on our paper already marked out for us. So that'll help us to recreate this drawing a little bit better. Okay, let's get started in just a second with the pencil drawing here. All right, so we're going to use our drawing, and hopefully you can always hit pause. You can look at this right now. You can hit pause right now and draw your pencil sketch from this. It really gives you a great bit of reference. And then we're going to draw this, and we're going to I'll darken this up with a little bit of pencil here. And again, this is a very fun subject matter to paint. Like a refreshing waterfall, nice and cool. We're thinking summertime, maybe out on a picnic or a hike somewhere, enjoying the weather and exercise and fresh air, and it's a fun subject matter. So we're going to have this here. So this is going to be the area that we said was the pool area, where it pulls up the water down here. And then we have the first bit of waterfalls are right here, going this way. But the only thing is, I don't want to have too much pencil lines showing, so I'll erase as I go, but I just wanted to show you where we're going with the pencil lines. And again, we're going this way, right up to this rock here. And then up here, we have water pooling up here, and we have another bit of water falls here. And we had more plants and things like that. We had a little small tree with some branches over here on the left. And then over here we had another large rock shape over here. like that. And this is another dark rock shape over here and over here too as well. And this is sort of a wall of rock and moss there. So you can kind of see everything's coming together really nicely for our sketch. And this is about what we want to see for our sketch. And then what you can do is, once you have things sketched in, you could lighten up some of your lines in the water areas where the water is flowing, the waterfall itself. You can lighten up those lines. And again, I usually draw darker on my pencil sketches so you can see my drawing as I go. But this is fine. We'll keep it a little bit, in an abstract style. We won't be getting too fussy with a lot of details. This rock here we're going to leave like this, and we'll have that flowing in like this. So we have this flowing in here. These are some rocks and things over here. This is the water pooling over here, and then again we have our waterfall going here, here, and then here. Alright, now what we'll do is we'll start to mix up some colors in our palette. I'll probably start off with my number 8 travel brush that we've been using so far a lot of. I'll empty out my water just to start out with some fresh clean water. We have our palette cleaned up. I'll have a tissue in hand to dry off my brush. And right away I'm going to go in with my darks. So right where those permanent marker marks that bled through onto our watercolor paper, that's perfect because that's what we want. We want that dark to go into our painting first. So it's burnt sienna, burnt umber, and French ultramarine blue, and a little bit of cerulean blue I think is going to be fine. And I'll start to get those darks right in right away. Like this. So you can see I'm getting in my darks first, where that rock is there. And then over here there's another dark bit of rock here. And that dark rocks, they go right over here and they come all the way up to the top. Up here. Like this. And I leave a couple lights on top of the rocks. Some white paper for light. So the light's coming into the picture more or less from probably the top of the picture. I think this is kind of like a middle of the day, like, noontime. The light's coming straight down like this. We put in our light insignia when we can. When we think of it, we always want to put that in there. And there's some more darks up here too. They're going to be a little bit lighter though up here, so I will start to get some raw umber. And it should be cooler though, so let's go with a cooler dark up here. And this is the water all the way up top, like this. That's the water all the way up top. And notice I made that a little bit lighter. I just used more cerulean blue to make it cooler and a little bit not as dark, because that's in the distance up top. That's far away. As we go up the waterfall like this, if we're just kind of like, as if we're looking at our painting, we're saying, well, here's closest to us, where the ponding of the water is. And then as we go up our waterfall, that's getting further away from us. And then as we get up to the top here, where the water, actually the river is up here, or stream, it pretty much looks like about a really healthy stream or river, small river. Up there, it's going to be in the distance. So that's going to be cooler, which is more cerulean blue in that dark. And it's a little bit lighter. It's not as dark of a tone as the darker, rich darks down here. So that's just something to remember. You can lift up a little bit of paint if you want. If you made it too dark. We're going to go with some raw umber now. Raw umber and then the blue that we just used. And we're going to see if we can just maybe get some rock textures here. Like this. We just kind of slide the brush up like that. A little bit darker at the bottom. There's some rocks at the bottom here. I'll take my brush, put a little bit of extra water in there. So I'm going to load up my brush. You can see how this over here and this over here is hardly any water, mostly straight paint. You can kind of see that. Like it's not puddling up the water on these two sides here. I'm really not using much water at all, mostly straight paint for the darks. Now here I want to do some splashing, so I did add a little bit of extra water to that wash. And what I'll do is I'll just come down here and I'll just splash some rocks on here, because there's like rocks at the bottom of the painting here. So I'm going to add some rock shapes here, round shapes. Splashing works too for rocks. That's the perfect way to make some rocks. Like that. Okay. And you're going to see how fun this painting is, because really, essentially, we're going to put some green in here. So I'm going to add some green everywhere. I meant to do that before. It's summertime in this painting, so there's a lot of green. And we have some more shadows over here on this rock. Over here. And then this over here is kind of really dark, so let's go with that over here. That's a really dark shadow on that rock there. And some more dark over here. Okay. So now you can kind of see it's starting to come together as we paint our darkest darks in here. Now we'll go with a little more green, sap green, and even some cadmium lemon yellow. We're going to have some really bright greens in here. There's some moss and stuff over here, like that. And then some darker darks in there too. And then some rocks over here too. You want to have that rock kind of feeling with rocks and a gritty, rough textures of the rocks along this river here in this waterfall. So we did have that accomplished now. We have that in there. And then we have another dark here. Again, we'll mix up a little more dark. French ultramarine blue, burnt umber, burnt sienna. And we get our another dark in there like this. Like that. And then we have some more darks here we're going to do. Now for some of the other darks that are in this flow of the waterfall coming down, we're going to use a smaller brush. But let me get the rest of the rocks up here. All right, that looks good. And then you never know, all of a sudden we're working on this and we just say to ourselves, wow, it's really looking good. We're going to have some more greens over here, like this. Some of these bright, fresh looking greens, you want to have those over here. Splash a couple of those in there on the other side of the painting. Maybe there's some weeds and grasses and things over here too. There's certainly a lot of that over here. Tell you what, this is really going really beautifully so far. So let's continue with the good work, and we will just take a quick break. It's never going to hurt you if you take a a break for like 5-10 minutes when things are really going well, flowing nicely. And that's what we're going to do. Take a 5-minute break, come back, and we're really, again, I think we're about more than halfway done actually, because we're going to leave a lot of white paper for the water. So you'll see how we're going to do that. But actually we do have a lot of the information on here already in the painting, the dark darks. So we started with our dark darks. And always a good plan to start with your darkest darks first, and then finish up with your lightest lights. Okay, all right, we'll be right back. All right, I'm just coming back from my break for 5 or 10 minutes. You're coming along with me here, or we just, all of us took a break, 5-10 minutes. If you didn't and you're working through it, fine, great. Not everyone is going to take breaks at the same time and so forth, but let's just keep an idea of, taking a break is going to help you a little bit here and there as you go. I'm going to mix up a little more dark here. French ultramarine blue, burnt umber, burnt sienna, a little touch of that. Okay, so now I have a little more dark loaded up on my brush here. What I wanted to kind of say is when I do take a break and I come back and look at my painting, I can see some things that I didn't see when I was painting before. So now what I did notice is that I have a lot of darks over here on the right side of my painting. So if you can see that all these darks over here, the painting looks heavy over here because all those dark rocks. And I don't have as much dark rock formations over here on the left. They actually are over here, but I haven't painted them in dark because it doesn't look so much dark in our first sketch that we did. But I am seeing that we should add some dark, heavy looking rocks on the left side too, to kind of make everything feel like it's weighted evenly. Because sometimes you can actually create a painting and you put so much heavy looking things on one side of the painting that it actually looks like your painting's going to like tip and fall off the wall. So always remember that. Balance is important in your paintings. That's a good thing. You can always remember, check your balance in your paintings at all times. Think of it as like a seesaw or a scale. You always want to look at your painting and make sure it's not like out of balance, like just overall, like big heavy looking objects in a painting on one side of the painting, and then the other side doesn't look like there's many objects, or darks. Like I said, we have lots of dark, heavy rocks over here. It looks really heavy over on this side. Now, if we counterbalance it, which we're going to do right now, with more, I'm going to put a heavier dark over here with a rock there. That is going to help to make it look less I think that helps. That does look better. And maybe another heavier looking dark over here too as well. And I think that does look like it helps a bit to keep things looking even here. Yeah, that looks better. All right, perfect. So now what I'll do is I think I'm going to shift over to a smaller brush. I'll use the number 5 here. And then what I'll do is I will go in with a Viridian green and cerulean blue, like that. Now when I have this color, I have to make sure I go in now and add it a little bit here and there. So I'm going to add this here and there, a little bit up here, like that. So I'm going to add this color up here, maybe even a little bit in the sky. I think we're going to have a sky wash up here. And now I can add this here. I just take my brush on the side like this and just flow it just like this. And the same thing over here, like this. And if you can get that kind of rolling feel with the brush, curling the brush stroke like that, that's going to help tremendously. It's really going to look really good. And then once that dries, I'll take some more of this and we'll splash over here. I'll get some more water, a little more Viridian green, like that. We're going to splash around a little bit here. And then we're just going to do that. Come across and make some and I think that looks really good. A little bit of cerulean up here for the sky. I'll just kind of scrub the sky in a little bit with my brush. I don't want to make it like too fancy, or I'm not trying to make a big deal about the sky really at all. I just want to make sure I put some blue up there so that it looks like the sky up top. And we will add some more greens and things like that for our tree over here, and some weeds and grasses and things on the left side over here. And we can actually take some of this here with a little more water. And we'll add some splashes over here of that green, and we're going to add some over here too. So now this we can do, we'll make a nice bit of splashing with our lighter green, which was the sap green and cadmium lemon yellow. You can make a nice lively looking green like that. And that can be like your some leaf forms. You can tap on your, once you splash, you can do some tapping. Light tapping, not everywhere, just here and there. Don't overdo it. And that's all you need. That's enough indication that it feels like you can see that it's some leaves on the trees there, and we are going to add some branches and stems and things like that, and weeds over here, so you're going to see more detail as we go. But we're almost finishing up here. I might make a little bit of some indications of some leaves over here too, and I might make a few branches and things over here as well. But I think that's about really, we're kind of looking really good now. We could take a little bit of the dark down here, make it like a grayish color, and then we could take it and dry off a little bit on the paper towel or tissue. And then we're going to want to have a little bit of shadows in here, some dark shadows in the waterfalls at the bottom over here. But not too many, and I would make them pretty dark. They look dark in the sketch we did, so we might as well kind of keep it the same way. Again, I mix up a little bit of that dark, dry off the brush a little bit. I don't want too much on here, on the paint on there. But you can kind of see how we can get that, the dark shadows under the water, like that. And again, you're using the same flow as the water is flowing down, like that. And then maybe you can just smooth some stuff out a little bit here and there. And you're going to see we're going to even do a little more detail. We're not finished, but we don't want to go overboard too with too much detail. So that's the kind of the real good. That's good there. Good. You'll see that this painting is, there's some finesse to it, and I think you have it. So now we'll let this dry for about 5-10 minutes, or if you use a blow dryer, you can do it in quicker. But maybe if it's a half an hour, you let it dry, fine. If you have a blow dryer, you can blow dry this now, and then we'll go over and we'll do our final details. So we'll be right back. I'm actually going to take a quick break for 5 or 10 minutes, use the blow dryer a little bit, and then we'll come right back in and we'll finish up the final details. We're going to do some of the small tree with some stems and branches and a little bit of a trunk of a tree. We'll do a little bit of branches over here. We're also going to do a little bit of a secret surprise that we're going to save for the very end of this painting, but I won't tell you yet. I'm going to wait, and I guarantee many of you already know what that's going to be. So try in your mind to think, what have I not mentioned that we're going to do at the end of this painting right now that we will actually use a technique and a little bit of something that we usually do on a regular basis that you kind of know. If you paint with me a lot, and I'm hoping you'll subscribe. Don't forget to subscribe on the right-hand side below, because if you watch on a regular basis, you're going to have all these methods and techniques, you know, working for you in a really good fashion, and your watercolors is going to look really wonderful. So please stick with me. If you subscribe below, again, on the right-hand side, you won't miss a thing. All subscribing does is really simply, anytime you open up your YouTube channel to watch videos, if I've created a new video, you'll see it there somewhere on your YouTube homepage. And it'll just say, you know, Chris has created a new video, and then you'll be able to grab your brushes, your paint, your paper, and you'll be ready to jump in with this and work. Okay? All right, so let's get busy in just a minute or two, but let's let this dry. We have to let this dry. Remember that? Really crucial that you're letting things dry as you're progressing through your painting or using the blow dryer as we kind of like work through the process. And we always, here on my channel, I'm always going to mention to you the start and stop points of when you're going to be letting your washes dry, when you'll need to do some either, you know, drying time of half an hour to an hour, or if you use your blow dryer. But I'll always mention that to you because it's really important. That's one of the keys to watercolor, knowing how to work with the washes while they're wet and when they dry. Because if you go in too quick and the watercolor paper is still wet, you can get some really, it can ruin a painting. So you could work great on a painting for like an hour, and then if you don't let something dry in a certain section and you go in and start painting onto it, it could really ruin the painting. So that's why that's really crucial that you kind of know those start and stop points with your drying times with your washes on your watercolor paintings. And I always cover that here on my channel, so always remember that. Okay, let's come back in just a few minutes. After this dries, of course. All right, so now we're back, and we are going to, let's use our needlepoint brush here. We'll get some of this dark here. We'll use a tissue. Again, we always want to remember that when you're going in to do some like finer details, many times you're going to want to load up your brush with paint, but then you want to tap a little bit of that paint off at first just to get the feel to kind of see if you're going to, if it's going to look right, if the brush strokes are going to look right with the paint you have mixed up. And so I have a good feeling right now that's going to look fine, and yep, that looks good. So I will do a couple of these just quick stems and branches from this small tree we're going to make over here. Like that. Not too much. You know, too many details can ruin a painting, so I don't want to do that. I want to make sure I just a couple over here too, a couple of branches and twigs, stems, just to indicate some, maybe a few here too. A little bit of sap green in there maybe. Just a few of those. Make a very small little bit of some branches and twigs here. Maybe another one here. And another one here. Like that. Okay, rinse off my brush. And I did mention I wanted to do one more thing, and I thought maybe many of you would figure this out. I'm sure you did. Good work. We are going to take some, if I can find it. Titanium white. Yes, titanium white with a little bit of raw sienna or yellow ochre in the top, just to make that titanium white, which is a stark white. Doesn't have any pigment really that would, make it cool or warm. So we add a little bit of that yellow ochre or a tiny bit of raw sienna just to make that white a little bit warm. And then what we can do is we could add a few highlights to these branches here that we made, and twigs and things, just a few. I wouldn't do too much. It's just kind of nice because we have so many darks over here. You can kind of see how that looks good if you add a few highlights to those branches, but not too many. Again, too much detail can sometimes really cause an issue with the painting not looking good. So we just add a little bit of white highlights like that. Something like this. Okay, and then the next thing we wanted to do was make sure that we have fresh, clean water. So I'm going to empty my water bucket over there on the side. I have a large bucket that I empty my small water container into as I work, and then I keep just pouring new fresh water in all the time to my water bucket. Now I'll rinse off the brush, and then what I'll do is I'll mix a little bit of the white that we just have mixed here over here. So we have some titanium white with, again, that little bit of raw sienna, and then we add some water to that. We want to get it so that it's flowing just a little bit so we can splash with it. And that's going to be really fantastic. Watch how this looks. So now we're going to splash. And it's just a matter of taking your brush, getting a good amount of water in your white paint like that, and then you just take your brush and swing it down toward the paper and then tap at the same time. Pick up more and splash, and pick up more. You want to have splashing along where the waterfall is. And if it seems like it's really hard to splash, then you have to add more water. That'll make it easier to splash if you add more water. And then I just add more there to the top. And believe it or not, if you don't go overboard with the splashing, but you do just enough, it's going to look really, really good. And then you can even take some of the splashing and add some water to it to make it like misty looking, like there's some mist and things like that. And then you can even tap on some of the paint, the water, the white, and then add more water to it, splash some water onto it. And if you have to, you can even lift up some, blot up some with a tissue if you think you've added too much splashing or anything like that. You can always quickly add or quickly take a clean tissue and lift up if you feel like you've added too many splashes. You can do that quickly and kind of quickly go in there and lift some stuff up, some paint. But I think that's really it. I think that looks good. I might want to just add a little bit of this gray mixture here, and then maybe just make some, make some kind of maybe it doesn't look good doing that, so then I lift it up. That looks good to me. I think I would add maybe, again, some yellow, cadmium lemon yellow with a little bit of the sap green. I'd add water to it, make it kind of where you have a little bit of, a decent amount of water in there that you can do some splashing. And then you can add some more splashing up here of the yellow. And again, that gives you that feeling, and you can then tap on some of those splashes, and that looks like some really nice leaf forms on those trees, and it gives you that feeling of summertime where there's really beautiful, lots of like fresh looking leaves and things on the trees, foliage. And I'll pick up some more over here, splash more over there. You can even add some over here to the rocks. And then, again, you can tap on some of those. Tap on some of the splashing. And that creates the leaf forms. You can blot up a little bit too with your tissue. But I think that's plenty good. Maybe over here we need some more to balance over here because we have a lot of greens over here. Let's make sure we have a decent amount of greens over here, at least. Not as many, but some that we need over here too, so it doesn't look like there's just something over here, like lots of greens over here and then there's not much over here. We want to have a bit of counterplay with the greens and the leaf forms and things like that. But I think that's fine. We could also add a few splashes to these. A little more cadmium lemon yellow. A little bit of water to that. And maybe a couple of splashes over here. If it doesn't look good, lift it up. You could even dip your tissue in the water and then just blot it all off there. Okay, you can blot that all out of there if you don't like the way that looks, like that. Let it dry 100%, and then you can come back and do a few more of those little branches and things over here. But it has to dry now, since if you take your paper towel or tissue and you kind of like clean up a section, take some paint off and some things off, you know. Then you can go back in when it's 100% dry and then do some more of those with the, which we use the needlepoint brush, right? We could do another couple of those. We can put those back in again. I just didn't like the way that those yellow leaf forms looked on those branches and things down here and twigs and so forth in the foreground. So not a problem. We'll go back later and fix that up. But at this point, we're done. We're actually, this is fine. If anything, I thought I might need a little bit of raw sienna up here in the distance. Those are like rocks up there. Those could be like mountains up here, or hills. And if these are hills back here, we just want to make them light though, not too dark. And this is complete. All right, so we are, I would say we're probably halfway through the video now. We've done about 2 or 3 compositions. We're going to keep working. We're going to do about 5 or 6. So let's keep working. And again, we're going to diversify our subject matter. So I'm hoping you're excited about that we will work on different types of subject matter so that you can try out different things. You might really be totally enthusiastic about this waterfall and think to yourself, wow, I'm going to do a lot more of these. I never tried them before, and now I'm realizing I really like this. This is really a beautiful painting, some beautiful subject matter, outdoors type subject matter. And then next thing you know, you're going to be off and running doing much more of these because this is maybe something you really enjoy. But if you don't really try it a few times, you're not going to know that it's something that you want to actually pursue. So that's why I'm trying to change up my subject matter as we go through this video so you can try different things. Okay, so we're going to come back again and even go to a different bit of subject matter on the next one. Okay, all right, we'll be right back. Before we move on to our next painting, I just wanted to see, this is what it looks like when we peel off the tape and we have that nice, crisp, beautiful border around there. So you can kind of see how that definitely looks a lot better now that we have it with the tape off. All right, we're going to be moving on. All right, and so we're going to be working on our next bit of subject matter here. And again, we're going to just stick with our process. We have the printer paper. And the printer paper is going to be for our first rough sketch of what we're going to do on our finished Fabriano watercolor paper. And I cut the printer paper to about the approximate size of the painting we're going to create here. And we're going to have a really fun, this one's going to be really cool. We're going to do a seated pose, a seated figure by the ocean. And I know many people on my channel, you really enjoy the ocean and the beach type paintings and seascapes and things like that. So this will be really fun. So the first thing we'll do is, again, this is just going to be the first rough sketch of what we're going to do. So this will just be, we're going to keep the figure, if we have our, this is our rectangle, our sheet of watercolor paper, hypothetically. This is just my, again, my printer paper. I'm doing a first try at it, just get a rough out the ideas we're going to do. So we're going to do the figure, and I'll just do the chair. So to do the chair first, it's kind of like we can just think in more simple terms. Instead of thinking of we're drawing a chair, a beach chair, we're just going to say let's just break the beach chair down into smaller parts so that we're not trying to like rack our brains out thinking, oh, how am I going to draw this beach chair? It looks pretty, a lot of pieces of tubes of steel, and then they're going all different ways and all this. No worries. Let's just break it down. The first thing we'll break down is the bottom of the chair is basically a rectangle, and we could see that rectangle as sort of being like a tissue box or a moving box or a I don't know, this could also be like a sugar cube, except it's a little bit more of a rectangle than it is a square. But anyway, kind of like we can think of it as like a I could definitely consider this like a tissue box, something very simple, or a box, just a regular box. And we're going to do an X. Only thing is, let's just do the X across it. So now we've just done a box with an X. That's the bottom of the beach chair. Quite simple enough. Then the next thing we have is the vertical part of the chair, which is which has the backrest on it. So two vertical tubes or pipes that make up this chair. They're aluminum or stainless steel. Probably it's aluminum actually. Then we just say, well, how tall are these tubes up from the bottom of our rectangle here that we made with the X in it? So we just look at our, I have a reference photo that I have online here. I just looked on my phone and found a few beach photos with people sitting in their chairs. I don't want to put, it's actually got, it's a copyright issue. I can't really show the photograph online here on this channel because they'll shut off the video. They won't let me play this video because it'll have a copyright strike. So anyway, we have that. So this happens to be, if I look across here, about 2 times the height of this box is the height of these tubes. Not quite. So I'll say, all right, that's 1. Happens to work out just right that it's the black part of the pencil. That's 1. Then we go up here. Maybe we put a little dot and say, okay, that's the first one height. The height of this 1 times plus another 3/4. So this would be 2. So that's 1. 2 would be the top of the pencil here, but it's not quite that much. So we're going to leave it like about where it is, like that. And then we have it. That's our tube there and our tube over here. And they're a little bit, you can see that they're not quite straight. They're a little bit tipping in like this. So that's just something to notice. And then the actual fabric of the chair is drooping down like this, like a smiley face, like that. And then it's attached here and here, and then the fabric goes like this. Sideways smiley faces over here. Or those could be frowns, like that. Womp womp. So we have a smiley face up here, top of the chair, fabric of the chair, and I'll just shade the fabric of the chair in a little bit so you can kind of see. And then also here, the fabric of the chair where the seat is. That's also here. So now you can kind of see that chair's coming together quite nicely. And all we did was just make a few hash marks and do a little bit of scaling and measuring. And then I think we're going to have some beach sand over here like this. right where the bottom of that seat is, going across, or right through the center of the X, if you want to think of it that way. You could say the center of the X, cross bracing in the chair right here, the center of that is where the beach sand is, approximately here. Now, this is the fun part. We're going to have a really enjoyable time drawing the figure here, the human figure, and we don't have to get too complicated with maybe a different, drawing the human form is very challenging. It takes a lot of practice, a lot of time to work on it and get the feel for it. So this is like a great starting point. And I can never do enough of these type of paintings myself because I'm always learning more and more about the human form and how to draw it correctly and have more fun with it. But right now what I'm doing is drawing the arms of the chair, which are sort of, they come out like this on this side. And then on this side, the chair's on a little bit of an angle, so we don't see the full bit of the arm there. So now I'll start my figure here at the top of, I'm going to say, let me start with the shoulders lightly. I'm just looking at the shoulders of the figure. And I'm just going to go across. Like that. And then I'll do it a little darker now. So I did my first really light sketch, and now I'll go over a little darker so you can kind of see the lines like that. And then I'm going to come back up and we'll get the head here in, and that is a little bit of the neck there, and then the base of the skull here, the head. And I'm just going to go up and around like that. So this person is sort of turned to the right here, looking a little bit to the right, and that means we will place the ear. The ear is right about here, like that. And you can even do a little bit of erasing if you have to. And again, this is the first go at this, so no worries. I'm not going to put any really features on the face other than the ear. We'll just leave the ear as the only thing we're really going to see as far as a lot of detail for the head. And that's about it. So now we have the head, the neck, the shoulders. Then we're going to have the arm here and hand. So the hand is going to be draped over the chair like that. And then somehow we're seeing the thumb over here. And then over here, the sleeve of the shirt, and then the arm here, elbow, and the elbow's down here. And then we do see the part of the arm going this way across, like that. And I would say, looking at my drawing, it seems that maybe it looks a little bit like I've made maybe the top here a little bit larger compared to the chair. But again, we're just trying this for the first time, so I think I just need to make the chair a little larger or the body a little smaller for this next, when we start to draw on our watercolor paper next. But that's pretty much it. We don't see any of the legs. I'm looking at this. And then we can also make the tubes of the chair, just so we have this for when we go in to create our next finished sketch and drawing and then painting. We'll just have all this, reference material for us. And then the ocean is here. There's some waves, and then maybe the distant ocean out here. And that's it. Alright, so we have it. There is a shadow under here too. We can just put the shadow. So the sunlight is directly up overhead. And it does look like it's actually sort of this way. The sunlight's maybe more like this. So we can adjust our. All right, let's take a quick break and we'll come back and we'll begin the next part, which is a preliminary sketch and then a contour drawing of the figure here and the chair and the ocean and the rest of the painting. All right, so preliminary sketch on our printer paper with pencil completed. We'll set that up across from us on our table. And then you can always hit pause and draw from that, or you can wait until we get this completed, this next drawing, and you can hit pause then at that point and draw your sketch right from the video by just hitting pause. So I'm going to use maybe a mechanical pencil at this point. Okay, so we said we were going to just keep the beach chair lower in the painting. So we'll start off and I'll make we'll make that cube. Okay, I think I have to find another pencil. Okay, so let's make this a little bit larger. We said we were going to make this cube in the square a little bit larger, like this. Maybe we'll kind of just keep it, the chair at the bottom larger, and then the figure will be a little smaller as we go up higher in the painting. I think that might look good, so let's do that. All right, so we have the square, and then we did the X, the cross X inside that cube or box. Then we said we were going to go up with on a slight angle. So we would just go up on both sides pretty much, and they're about, let's take a look, see. All right, so if this is one, it's got to go up another half, like that. And then I'll just start to do the tubes here of the beach chair. So I'm just gonna and the beach chair goes down into the sand, so we don't necessarily see all the details at the bottom of the chair. So that's one thing we kind of have, which works to our advantage, is we don't have to worry about the extreme details at the bottom of the chair. And then across here is actually the fabric of the chair, across here. And then we said the bottom of the seat here is like this. And then our sand is about a little bit above the X, maybe here. I'm looking and seeing that it's a little slightly above the center of the X, the beach sand. And then we have the dark shadows over here of the figure, being the cast shadow of the figure here underneath the chair. And the shadow is larger over here, and then it gets smaller over here, so the sun is coming from this direction. High up in the sky, though. Then we said the next thing we did was we made the fabric of the chair like this. And then here it comes around and goes back down there. And back down here. And we won't get too fancy with the fabric. We'll just leave it like that. And then we're going to be doing our figure here. We're going to do the neck and shoulders area up here. So just a soft kind of radius there. Nothing extreme. And then we'll do let's create the arms of the chair first, because that'll, instead of trying to draw the arm, we can draw the resting place for the arm first. The arm of the arm, the arm of the chair first, and then when we draw the arm, it'll nicely fit into that place we're going to create for it. So that tends to be a good way to do this. And I'm just looking, where is the arm of the chair starting? It's about here, about halfway up, and then it comes down. It's fabric with a metal support coming up this way underneath. Alright, so that's the one arm of the chair, and then the other arm of the chair over here is a little bit lower. So for whatever reason, this arm over here of the chair is a little bit lower. Might just be that the way the chair was set up, that it's, and we'll do that there, like so. Now we can just take from the shoulders to the arm, and then the sleeve of the shirt, the elbow, like that. And then the arm is going like this on an angle, that way. Then over here, again the shoulder. And then we're going to have the sleeve of the shirt here. And then the elbow back here. Arm here. A lot of foreshortening over here where you're seeing the elbow here, back of the arm, elbow, and the hand here, all in one compact area, and that's just because of the angle. So you just, we'll be careful to look at exactly what we're looking at. I'm looking right at the photograph, and we could even just always reference this first sketch, and we said, like, the elbow is here, the arm is here, then we have our sleeve here of the t-shirt, and then the hand here, and that's all in that one compact area. And again, that's because of foreshortening and the angle of the camera. It's just the way it naturally looks when you're looking at this. If we were looking at this scene with a camera and we took a picture of this person, that's how it's going to look. So we would just recreate what we're seeing. Like that, and then we see a thumb here, like that there. And then again, we come up here and we're going to do we're going to create the neck. Not much of the neck showing here. The neck, we can see a little bit of the curve in the neck here, and then right away we go into the head. And this person again is turned slightly down. The head is slightly looking down and to the right. So then we can just create the ear, which is really close to the shoulders here. Just above the shoulder. So that would be the ear there, like that. And there's the back of the hairline a little bit there, and that's it. That's all we need to do. We're not going to see any of the nose or anything like that, or the features on the right side of the face. Just the ear is all we need. A little indication of the ear there. Doesn't have to be much at all. We could even cover it with hair and not even worry about it. The only thing is, if you put the ear in, it gives the head more information when you're looking at it to kind of feel the tilt of the head and where the ear is in relation to the overall head shape. And then what will we look at next here? All right, so I think we're pretty much, there might be a little bit of some, I don't think we're going to do much as far as seeing any of the feet or anything like that. We're going to see the t-shirt here, the white t-shirt. There might be a little bit of a duffel bag or something over here. We could just create a little bag maybe with a handle on it. Like this. And then we can create the ocean. So that might be the distant ocean there. And then we'll just free paint the ocean coming in. We're going to have some waves coming in. But we're not going to make a big production of the ocean or anything like that. Mostly this is about enjoying, creating this seated figure on the beach. And you can put you could change this from a male or a female. Really, actually, if you wanted to paint a female or a male, you would just, maybe you could create like longer hair if you wanted to, or maybe a bun for the hair if you wanted to create more of a female style figure. So you can actually, you can custom adjust your painting according to whatever, you want to do. You don't have to actually create it, exactly like this. You can do some changes like that. You can maybe change a little bit of the ocean if you wanted to, make it a little different maybe, or sky a little different. But the figure is the main thing, the chair and the seated figure. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. Let's try it. Let's get into the painting now. All right, so now let's start working on the figure. I'll start out with some of the flesh tones. So I'm going to probably use yellow ochre and some cadmium red. And also burnt sienna. And then a little bit of the blue over here, cerulean blue, just for some shadow and maybe to darken things a little bit. And I'll start over here on the elbow. And then it's a little darker over here on this side, so I'm going to try to get that little bit of that cerulean blue on the shadow side of his arm underneath, and that's going to go across here. Then there's some more light on the other side over here. I won't overwork it. I'm just going to leave that as it is. This light is this arm is in the light a little more, so I'm not going to get too dark with this side over here. And I'll just add a little bit of a damp brush. So I'll put a darker bit of red here where the elbow is, and then I'll just use a rinse my brush off and dry off a little bit of the water on a paper towel or tissue, and then just use a damp brush to complete the rest of the flesh tone over here. And then his hand is in shadow over here on this side over here, as well as his thumb. And then here we have looks like a cerulean blue and cobalt blue we'll use for the chair. It's kind of light. This here is darker, so I will continue with the same colors. Cobalt blue, maybe a little bit of purple. So I'll put a little bit of purple there. with a little bit of red flesh tone into the purple to gray it down a little bit. So we'll have that. And then I'm just careful to look at the shadow patterns. But the main thing I wanted to do was definitely get the flesh tones first. And then if I see a little bit of a rough looking edge, I'll try to smooth it out a little bit. I'll get some of that cerulean blue over here. Okay, now I think I'm going to continue working some of the darks. Let me see. I'm going to go up here, French ultramarine blue and burnt umber, and a little bit of burnt sienna. And then I'm going to start working again on more of the darks. I might leave that go. So I'm just kind of taking my time here, looking around. What do I want to do next? I think I want to start at the bottom of the figure, maybe in the chair. I'll leave the shadows for last underneath the chair. So I'm just kind of game planning as this is like a perfect time where you might take a break and sort of, start thinking, what do I want to do next? But I would say we're going to want to focus in on the figure mostly, and the chair first. Then we can start working into the shadowing, the sand, the bag, and then last would be the ocean and the sky. So that's sort of like what we're going to want to do. So what I'll do is we'll get some more blue here, shadowy blue, which is some of our dark mix, and then we add that to some cobalt blue. Maybe a little bit of purple too. We have like a nice shadow mix here, and then we'll just start doing the bottom of this chair. Is a lot of shadow here in the bottom of the chair, and there's some flesh colors there too, so I'll grab some of those flesh colors. So it's not all cool colors. There's some red and yellow, so some gold and red here in the bottom of the chair. And that's what we'll kind of notice when we see shadows a lot of times. They do have warm colors in the shadows as well, not just all cool or blue or gray colors. Sometimes they have a mixture. So right now I'm starting to notice that this brush is a little bit too small for this section that I'm going to do now, the chair here, the backrest of the chair. So I'm going to quickly upsize to a number 8. And then I can start to work on this. And I'll rinse off the brush, dry off a little bit of the water. And I'm trying to mix around the colors. And there's quite a bit of spot of shadow there. And then this over here, I rinse off the brush, dry off the water, and that is the light on this side over here. You can also blot up a little bit with a tissue if you think you've lost the lighter tonal values. You can always blot up a little bit of, but now we can see the lights kind of on this side of the chair over here, and this is darker over here. And then we can even grab some more of that, the blues. Like this. And then I just use a damp brush over here for the t-shirt, which is sort of blending into the chair. It's close to the same value, but we'll darken this up maybe a little bit. But that was a good time for a break now. We've kind of worked the colors in the chair, the backrest of the chair and the arms of the figure. And that's good. We're carefully looking again at the photograph. You'll be working from this. So once this is completed, once I think that's the way to work, is you want to work from a watercolor painting or this actual painting. You want to work and do your create your painting from this versus working from a photograph, because this is going straight to what you want. This is the actual colors you want, the darks, the lights, the flesh tones, everything. This is what you're going to want to replicate. If you're trying to work from a photograph, a lot of times it's really tough unless you've got a lot of experience. Some of you do, so there's no worries with that. I know many of you have a lot of experience with working from photographs and painting, and please do that. But if you're kind of newer to watercolor, or you haven't been working in watercolor a lot over the years, please work from a finished painting. I think it works a lot better that way. But that's just, again, not everyone's the same. So I just say that, with the caveat that, everyone works differently. If you want to see a photograph, you can always go online and just type in beach figures, seated beach figures, ocean figures, seated beach figures. And you should find that on Google. That you'll find probably the same. You'll be able to see which one I was working from probably. All right, let's take a quick break, and we'll come right back and keep working on this wonderful figure here on the beach. The ocean waves crashing in. A lot of fun on this painting, and this is something where you can be a total beginner and work on doing this type of figure work. It's a lot less challenging than trying to do a portrait or something of that nature. All right, and now's a perfect time. We'll just do a quick once around here on the palette, get up some of those paints that we've been mixing. A lot of mixing went on for the first part of this, so let's clean up the palette a little bit. Okay. Now, I think I'm going to work with the smaller brush again. And then again, a little more flesh tones. Yellow ochre, cadmium red. And this is something when you make your flesh tones, everyone might see flesh tones a little differently. I tend to like the cadmium red and yellow ochre or raw sienna. And then I can kind of see in the palette, if I just kind of move it around a little bit, I can kind of see that looks pretty good. And then over here, I'll just put a little bit of the blue, cerulean blue, for shadowing in the flesh tones. And then let's start with the neck here. And this is a little bit darker over here. That's in shadow over here, this part of the neck. And I'll just get that flesh tone right about there. And this gentleman has some gray hair. Again, you can change things around. You can make a younger person with dark hair. I'm just going to leave this with the picture, the way the picture looks. I'll take my brush, get some of that bluish gray color, dry it off on the tissue so that I have barely any paint in my brush, and then I'll just do some just like basically, scrubbing along the top of the paper like this on the back of the hair over here. So it's a little bit darker over here on this side of the, maybe a little bit of blue. And he's got a little bit of a flesh, maybe a little thinning up there. Who knows? And that's pretty good. I would tend to say with the hair, let's keep it minimal. That's, I think, is kind of a good rule to follow, is try to not do too much brush strokes and a lot of work in the hair usually, because it tends to and some flesh in there like that, flesh tone there. Okay, that's good. I'm going to leave that as it is. The only thing I might do is a little bit of French ultramarine blue and burnt umber and some of the red. I think there was a little bit of a shadow back here like that, so I will put that shadow behind the ear and a little bit of dark in the ear. Okay, that's good. And it'll look a lot better when we get the water, the ocean water, starting to blend in with the shape of the head of the figure here. Okay, then we're going to have a little bit of, there's some nice shadowing on the shirt here. Can be kind of any old grayish color, be fine, like that. There's some more shadowing over here. A little bit of purple. Rinse off the brush, fresh clean water, and then we can just slowly blend that edge there just to kind of soften it up a little. And then over here, there is some shadowing along this here. And I'm not going to get too fancy with the shadows. I think that'll be good like that. Maybe we'll go with a little bit of burnt umber here. This might be a burnt sienna, French ultramarine blue. And then I'm going to start working my shadows under the chair. Purple, French ultramarine blue, burnt umber, a little bit of burnt umber, some raw sienna maybe. Main thing is pretty dark. This is the shadows under the chair are definitely dark. And they sort of go right over to the edge of where the beach sand is here. They get a little lighter over here. But quite dark straight under the figure. And then more minimal over here. Rinse off the brush, dry off a little bit of the water. Burnt umber and French ultramarine blue. Maybe we'll do the handle here. I'll just do a couple splashes now to sort of, if I do a couple splashes along the bottom, that'll just give me like that texture for sand. And then you can even blot up your splashes. If you're doing very fine splashing, you can blot them up a little bit. And then some raw sienna. And before that dries, the shadowing underneath, I'm going to just darken it up a bit. All right, I think we're looking really good. I think the next thing we'll do is we'll just let this dry for a few minutes. We'll take a quick break, and then we'll work on the ocean and the sky. And again, I'll look at my and the last thing we'll do, well, there's a few details we'll do last, and I'll explain why I do them absolutely the very, very last, because they're going to be dark colors, and I don't want them to get reactivated when we do some of the ocean and the sky. So you'll kind of see the method to that in a second or two. All right, let's take a quick break. we've now accomplished, again, what we wanted to do was definitely, I think we can also do a shadow on the bottom of this chair here, which is just a little bit of the purple and grayish color. And then this here, this is a little bit more shadow there. And this here too, a little bit of shadow there. So these little subtle shadows, you can create these, or you don't have to do this. But if you do add some of these subtle shadows on the chair, it definitely enhances the light. This side is a lot in the shadow. Okay. Let's let this dry for about 5-10 minutes, or if you have a blow dryer, in a couple minutes we can get started again. Be right back. All right, everything is dried really nicely. What I thought was we're going to do some ocean waves and some sky colors, a little bit of sky maybe. I want to use Viridian Green, but I haven't used it yet so far in the painting. So what I have to do now is take just a little bit of the very, very light. You can kind of see how it's mostly water and very light. And I wouldn't use too much on my brush. I would get some of that Viridian Green in my brush with some fresh, clean water. So I'd empty my water bucket at this point. I should empty my water bucket, and I pour some fresh, clean water in there. And then what I'll do is I'll add some Viridian Green to a few places here. And if we do that, just subtly though, not too much. But if you add a little bit of Viridian Green, then rinse off the brush carefully. Take some of that water off the brush so it's basically like just a damp brush, kind of dry. You can even blot up a few spots if you, but as long as you get some of that Viridian Green and, you know, in a few places around the painting. Like this, a little bit of the Viridian Green, you're going to be fine. Then what I'll do is I'll take some of that Viridian Green, some of the blue here, cobalt blue maybe, and some of that green, Viridian Green, like that. So now I'm just going to try to mix up a little bit of the water color, or the ocean color, with a little bit of the raw sienna too. And then I'll just try to get some and what I want to do is just make sure that I keep it very minimal. I would not do much here. Again, we're creating a paint, you know, this is a composition. We're not saying this is a finished painting so much. We're practicing, but this might be the sky wash up here. Which is just kind of a grayish color with the purple, blues, a little bit of a mixture of all the colors. And then what I'll do is I will take some of that French ultramarine blue, maybe a little bit of cadmium red, French ultramarine blue, Viridian Green, and maybe I'll try to get some distant waves here. That might be the distant ocean right there. So hopefully that looks good. Some splashing here with some Viridia maybe. Some raw sienna. And I think if we just sort of, get a little bit of those really light washes here and there where the sand is, everything will tend to just really tie in nicely, so we have quite a bit of nice looking lost edges here on this figure. So you can kind of see how the ocean water is blending into the shirt a little bit here and there. That should really stay white paper there, though. That's kind of like a bright. But for the most part, a couple of splashes over here. And that's fine. We really have a completed painting, composition. And we're going to move on to our next painting. Again, I'm hoping you're having a fun time with our compositions here, doing lots of fun, diversified subject matter, and a fun figure painting here. Seated pose in the wonderful seascape style atmosphere. Okay, we'll be back in just a second, and the only thing I would say is I did say I wanted to do something lastly, and that was the chair does have some it has some highlights on it, some dark highlights right there. All right, let's get started on another. Okay, so for our final composition, let's do a wintry scene. This should be fun. We went from the ocean and the beach. Now it's winter time. We'll pretend we went from summer to winter. And I think I'm going to, for this composition, we'll start out with our rectangle. Always very helpful. And again, we're using the printer paper to get our first draft here of what we're doing. So on this one, I'm going to go with maybe a little bit above halfway is going to be my distant tree line back here. So I'm just going to make some distant trees back here. Just an idea of those in the back. And there might be a slight tilt to the land, which is good. Makes that look kind of interesting. And then we'll just do maybe some weeds and grasses and things over here. A few more over here, like this. So we're just going to have fun. This is going to be more of a relaxing exercise of just doing some winter snow, winter skies, beautiful distant tree line back here, some snowy fields here with some grasses and weeds and things. Maybe a couple of small trees like this. So we can do a couple of small trees like this in the picture too as well. And that is it. That'll be our basic design of it. So maybe a little bit above halfway, we have our distant hills where it meets the distant trees and the tree line. And then our tree line over here, and then just a little bit, the last third is going to be the sky. So sort of like we'll call this about halfway. And then this is about 2/3 of the way up, sky, like that. All right, okay. So we'll take a quick break and we'll reset up. Actually, let's just go right into our sketch. I'll use that. I'll set this up across from me. I have a vertical board in front of me that sits right straight ahead of me. And I just take my sketch and I just tape it to the board. So it's kind of like a wall in front of me. And then we'll do the same thing. We'll create a midway point. You can always, again, if you wanted to, you can measure it. Just if you want to get more accuracy, you could say, okay, this is 4.5 inches from here to here. So half of 4.5 is 2 1/4. So that would be our center point here. And that's about where the hill goes like this. And then we have our distant tree line back here. Like that. And then we have some of our weeds and grasses and things like this. And we'll keep this really loose and fun. No reason to stress or maybe we'll have a small tree here. We'll do mostly with brushwork for our trees and limbs and things like that. And the same thing here. Maybe we have another tree that's out of the, it goes down below the picture frame, this tree here, and straight up through. So this one maybe is quite large. Just like that. And then we have another one here. So you can change it around a little bit. But we're just going to have a fun time with the idea of creating a nice wintry scene with a snowy field, some distant tree line here, some small trees here. Snowy field, bushes, weeds, grasses, and things. We'll use some different brushes on this, and we're also going to use the glazing technique. We're going to cover the whole entire watercolor paper first with a nice glazing of a sunset or sunrise type feel, and then from that point, once that dries 100%, then we can go back in and put our darks of our distant trees and our grasses and weeds and things and the trees in the foreground here. All right, so we will be back in just a second. All right, so we're going to keep rolling along here. Let's clean up our palette a little bit. All right, and then we're going to, maybe we'll use some different brushes on this one here. I'll use a flat brush here, like this one here. I think this is a Sterling Edwards flat brush. Pretty nice size for the painting. Fits the painting nicely, like this. And then let me get some fresh, clean water. So as we start out this new painting, and we're just going to get a nice light dampness to the paper with some fresh, clean water. All I'm doing is really just dampening the paper from the top to the bottom. And that's all. Just one good pass should be fine, just to dampen the paper up a bit. Then we're going to go with like sort of a feel of cerulean blue, a sunset or a sunrise type feeling. So we'll have some cerulean blue here. That'll be for the snow at the bottom, and then a little bit up top here. And then we're going to have some little bit of purple. So you can almost use your palette as like your canvas. You can kind of set up your palette just like you would your canvas. You're going to take your colors and just put them in your palette, just like you're going to put on the paper. So cerulean blue at the base here, a little bit of ultramarine violet and cerulean blue here. And then as we get up higher, we're going to go with some orange and cadmium red and some alizarin crimson. Cadmium red, raw sienna too, some golden red colors. Okay, so golden red and orange up top, just like that. That's it. And then we just take those colors and just bring them right on down here. Rinse off the brush, dry off a little bit of the water, rinse the brush off again, dry off a little bit of water, and we'll start picking up our blue and a little bit of purple. Blend it back up into the sky a little bit, like that. And then we're going to just stick with the cerulean blue for the most part here for the snow. Like that. And that is all you have to do. Now everything is all set up perfectly for our next subsequent washes that we're going to go over the top here. So the first glazing is basically your really light sunset sky or sunrise sky, however you choose to think of it, with some really beautiful warm colors like the, again, we used cadmium red, a little bit of alizarin crimson, a little bit of cadmium orange, a little bit of raw sienna. Then we started moving into the little bit of ultramarine violet, a little bit of purple, and cerulean blue. And we left some white paper here and some cerulean blue in the snow areas, so that's going to be very cool. The feeling of the coolness of the snow. We're making a winter scene here, and it's really fun. So we've really kind of captured that perfect first glazing over the paper. Then what we'll do is we will use a hockey brush next, and this hockey brush will give us some of the weeds and things like that, and grasses and so forth. So we'll be using the hockey brush too as well. Here, so we'll be using that, and then we'll use our needlepoint brush as well for some of the wisps of grass, as well as some of the twigs, branches, and the bit of smaller trees here. So you're going to see how this all comes together, but this is really the perfect time where you take your break, maybe an hour break or so, a couple hours, let the paper dry. If you have a blow dryer and you want to blow dry it, that's fine, 5 minutes maybe, and you'll have this all really nicely dry. And the best way to think of it is when it's dry, it's completely back flat again like it was when we first started. So my Fabriano paper was completely flat. And then we started adding, of course, that fresh, clean water, clear, crystal clear water across the whole paper. Then we added our washes on top to get our nice, beautiful sunset, sunrise sky. Blue coolness of the snow and the white paper, leaving some white paper here with no washes over top. So you want to leave some of that white paper. And then once you have that first glazing, then that's it. You let that go. You let it dry 100%. And again, you can either let it dry naturally for a couple hours or so, or you can use a blow dryer for a couple, maybe like 5-10 minutes or whatever it takes, and then you're good to go. You can go back in, but when you go back in to paint the rest of the painting should be back flat again, like just tight and straight, like a drum skin, straight, flat, and that's how you know it's perfectly dry. And then you can go over the top with the subsequent washes that we're going to do, the darker tonal values and washes. So let's let this dry for a while, and we'll come back. All right, so now we have our paper 100% dry, and we'll start moving on to our next washes. And then we were going to use, like we were just mentioning, we'll use some different brushes in this tutorial. We're going to use the Hake brush, the medium size Ron Ranson Hake brush. I bought mine at Cheap Joe's Art Supply on the internet. And we might use, again, our number 5 travel brush, synthetic travel brush. I'll put these over here. I think the first one we're going to use, I think we'll probably, let's try using this. So I'll take this brush and put the brush in some fresh, clean water. Then I'll take a paper towel and dry off a little bit of the water off this brush, the Hake brush, medium size Hake brush. Then I'll splay out the hairs like so. Like that. Then I can take a separate brush, and maybe I'll use a medium sized brush here, number 5 maybe. And we'll start mixing some of our darker colors here. So we're going to go with French ultramarine blue, sap green, burnt umber, burnt sienna. I think that is a good combination here. So again, we're using French ultramarine blue for that really super dark. Again, burnt umber, very dark too. We'll have some burnt umber in there. Sap green, a definite must. We're having some, we're doing a tree line here, so we want that greenish kind of look to it. Some greenish color, and that should be good. And I wouldn't homogenize all the colors together. I would leave them a little bit, separate, the colors. So you wouldn't want to just keep stirring around or mixing around and taking all of these colors we just mentioned for mixing this dark here along the tree line. Let's leave it with, so you can see the different colors. And then at that point, we just take our Hake brush and load up the brush, the tips of the hairs, like that. Like this. And then, now that we have that, we're going to go along the very top of the tree line, see if we can get some really nice. I'll tap, and it looks like I might need some more. I possibly need a little more paint, so don't be worried. Trial and error. Take some more French ultramarine blue. Straight paint, no water. Burnt umber, straight burnt umber there. Straight tube paint. Sap green. A little bit of burnt sienna, straight paint. And then once you have that there, load up your brush a little more. Get some more of that paint on there, on the tips of the brush. You don't have to load up the whole brush, all the hairs, just the tips of the hairs like this, if you can see, like that. And then we'll just keep working that. And that's better. Now we have a little more darker darks. So I tap and then also do a couple of upstrokes and some taps, some upstrokes like this, like that. Then we can start doing closer to that bottom edge we see here, that pencil line we drew in for the distant tree line. Like that. That's good. That's what we wanted to accomplish right there with our Hake brush. Now we take our number 8 watercolor brush and we get those same colors, and now we go along the bottom here. And then we just and as you can see, we're getting that bottom of that forest, those tree lines. We're getting the bottom of that tree line in there, like this. And we're leaving those tops of the trees loose and light, with some of the light showing through. So the tops of the trees, it's more sparse, the foliage and things, and that's why we're going to leave that. We're going to leave that light showing through. And that's our distant tree line. And you can add a few more trees in the distance that might be a little more, here and there might be a few that are, we could see, maybe some pine trees. Some pine trees that are kind of higher up here and there, that rise above the main tree line there. Okay, perfect. That's your edge of your tree line there. Now let's take our Hake brush again. I'm going to add a little bit of water to my Hake brush. Take the same colors we just used. We don't need to do anything really other than just get some of this color and wash onto that Hake brush again, and see if we can get some weeds and grasses and things here. And we have other brushes we're going to use. We're going to use our needlepoint brush too as well, but let's see if we can just get a little bit of some tufts of grass and things over here. And if we can do them quick, and that's it, quick little bits of upstrokes like this, lightly, that's all we have to do, really. We don't have to get too involved with too much time spent with this, just enough to, like that. And I think that is fine. So our Hake brush has done a great job of getting some of those bits of grass, weeds, tufts of grass in the foreground here. And then we can go in and get our number 8 brush again too, go in with the same colors. We're not going to do too much with changing of our colors. I think we're going to leave our colors, and I'll just put a little bit of some darker bits of I'll do a couple more, just a little more detail to this. And this brush has a good point on it, so I can kind of get some nice fine detailing, and then we'll mix up some more darks. French ultramarine blue, burnt umber, sap green, burnt sienna, okay. Then we go in, use our fine brush here, needlepoint brush, and then we'll try to get a few more bits of and that's all we have to do right now is get a couple of those wisps of grass here and there, a couple of wisps of grass there, like this. And then the same colors again. French ultramarine blue, burnt umber, burnt sienna, sap green. Just a touch of water. Load up the brush. And now we're going to do our, let's do this first. And then we're just going to do a few branches like this, a couple coming down this way. Okay, and then over here, this tree over here, these are very small trees we're going to do right now. This one here is a little larger, this one here is a little smaller, and we're just going to, again, we're basically just flicking on the branches really nicely. Like this. And the quicker and more carefree you are with these type of lines with your trees, the better they're going to look. So you almost just have to throw them on the canvas or throw them on the paper like this. It'll look more realistic that way. I don't know why that is, but it really does work. Okay, so now we have some beautiful foreground features that sort of give us the feeling of really fantastic three-dimensional depth in our painting. And the only thing left, I believe we're going to do right now, is maybe a couple more little small wisps of grass here. We probably won't see them too much past this area here. And I think that's good. Next, we will do our finishing touches. The next thing I want to do actually is just empty my water container. Get some fresh, clean water in there. Because now we're going to mix just some yellow ochre in the top of our titanium white. So I have some titanium white watercolor with a little bit of raw sienna or yellow ochre, and I put that in the top of my paint. So I just give that titanium white a little bit of that yellow tone and color to it. And then now, if we just do a little bit of very minimal highlights here, then you can see that it creates a really nice feeling of you're seeing the trees and the branches, the highlights of those here. And it doesn't have to be everywhere, just a few little indications here and there. Just enough to, whoever's looking at the painting, they're going to see that, oh yeah, it's very clear that you're seeing some highlights, some glimmers of light on the trees and the tree trunks and the tree limbs and branches. That makes a big difference. Adds an incredible amount of three-dimensional quality if you can get those little bit of highlights there. You can also put a few here and there on some other branches here. But that's good enough. And that's completed. All right, so we've had so much fun here. Again, I'm hoping you'll subscribe on my channel and give me a thumbs up too if you think you've felt these tutorials are really beneficial to your watercolor journey. I'm really happy to just keep working here on YouTube. It's a great time. We have so much fun working on our paintings, our compositions in watercolor, and we're always kind of just getting together once a week or so and having a lot of fun with this and enjoying it. So let's keep that journey going, and we'll see you on the next video. Again, thanks so much for watching. Thanks so much for all your support on YouTube here, and also I know many of you are purchasing my book and have purchased my new book. I have down below in the comments section, you'll see I have a new book out. It's been out for maybe a couple of years already, but I still consider it a newer book. It's my first book. I have actually a 2-minute video. You can check out every page of each of the pages of the book in that video. So that video is maybe just 2 minutes long on YouTube. When you click on the link to that video, you'll see every single page, so you see exactly what you're going to get when you purchase my book, all the paintings, and there's over 60 to 70 paintings in that book, so you'll be able to have tons of great watercolor paintings to work from, as well as the beginning of the book has a lot of great exercises and practice exercises that you can do to just warm up before you're starting your painting and drawing and painting. All right, so we'll see you on the next video. Thanks again for watching, and happy painting, everybody.